When his men are threatened by a war party from the fearsome Gros Ventre tribe, legendary fur trapper and trader William Sublette faces the ultimate test of leadership. An unknown number of warriors have barricaded themselves in a thick stand of trees. And for the moment, they remain out of sight behind a wall of blankets and buffalo hides. But the Gros Ventre have no problem seeing the advancing trappers.
Get him back to the camp! Hurry!
And just a few steps away from the barricade, Sublette finally glimpses the warriors waiting in ambush. Now, he suddenly finds himself in a vicious battle that his men might not win.
Sublette's hit!
And it just might cost him his life. William Sublette is a legendary trapper, hunter, explorer, and fighter, but above all else, a businessman. In the cutthroat world of the fur trade, he is a driven competitor and a relentless innovator.
William Sublette is the mastermind of making money during the fur trade. You want to learn business tactics? You got William Sublette Business 101, and you'll learn.
But this isn't the type of enterprise where you just control the operation from afar. You need to be out there on the frontier, on the front lines, engaging in the fur trade.
He's still doing 1,000-mile walks. He's still subject to getting killed in combat with Native Americans. There's no business today where the people are asked to court that level of risk. You have to be comfortable with the idea that every day might be the day that you die.
The annual Trappers Rendezvous is the most important event on the frontier. A place to trade, swat tall tales, blow off steam, and prepare for the next season's hunt. At the rendezvous, greenhorns get their first taste of frontier life.
Care to gamble?
Just want to watch.
Well, we'll watch in the lounge.
And veteran mountain men, like William Sublette, take stock of their lives and plan their next steps.
So there we were on that blasted sandbar, and we were surrounded, I mean surrounded, by shrieking Arikaras.
Hey, Tom, you keep on telling them so-called war stories, you're liable to frighten the greenhorns.
Sublette is a member of a famous brotherhood, including Jim Bridger, Tom Fitzpatrick, Jedediah Smith, and William Ashley, mountain men whose adventures are already the stuff of legend.
How many was there this time? Last time you said there were hundreds.
I will not be scolded for tall tales by the likes of you, Jim Bridger. And anyways, it was 1,000 Indians attacked General Ashley here, and Jed Smith and I.
That was the day, though. Still remember the sermon you gave for all them boys we lost, Jed. There's a sound to wake them boys up.
Sorry.
You a lunger, fella?
Tuberculosis. Doctor back east told me the mountain air would do me good.
Robert Campbell was an Irish immigrant who grew up with perennial lung ailments. It involved violent coughing.
He was advised by a physician to head west, a common cure at that time.
This here is Robert Campbell. He's a good man. Rode out with my brigade.
For what? Mr. Robert Campbell, is it?
I thought maybe I'd get rich.
You want to get rich, there's easier ways to go about it. Ways that won't get you killed.
You're still alive.
Listen, I knew fellas like you. Mountain air never saved one of them. Why don't you head back east with General Ashley here? You might not last the winter if you stay.
You're probably right. Look around you. Surely there are worse places to die than this. Wouldn't you say?
Sublette sees something in this determined young man that no one else sees.
Robert, don't let any man make the choice that's yours. If you wish to stay on, you can mess with me. Now, come on, you dolts, make room.
And just like that, Robert Campbell joins the most elite trapping brigade on the frontier, and William Sublette finds a lifelong friend.
Campbell is a very quiet man, and yet when he met William Sublette, it's like they found each other, and they became best friends, fast friends, right out of the gate.
I think that the two of them saw qualities in each other that filled in the qualities that they were missing in their lives.
Now, pardon the interruption. I believe you're up to 10,000 Indians in that battle.
That sounds right.
They were friends forever, for a long time.
Sublette takes Robert Campbell under his wing, little suspecting that one day Campbell will save his life. Sublette doesn't just gain a friend at the 1826 rendezvous. He also gets an opportunity to level up in the fur business.
Congratulations.
You, sir.
Jed, you and General Ashley jawing about?
He's leaving the mountains, Bill.
Ashley's been the driving force behind the fur trade for years, and without his leadership, the rendezvous system itself could fall apart.
For William Ashley, it was perfect timing to get out of the trade at the 1826 rendezvous. He saw what a difficult enterprise it was, how physically difficult and how many risks were involved.
Shrewd of Ashley to get out now. Beaver's harder to come by, we all see it. We need some new country.
For sure. I'd love to explore some of the new frontier.
What then becomes of Ashley's company?
Well, that's what we were discussing. I've made an agreement with Mr. Ashley.
You?
No.
I don't envy a man running a fur company all by his lonesome, especially if you mean to trap out west. What you need is a partner.
And I imagine you have someone in mind for this partnership, Mr. Sublette?
Indeed I do, Mr. Smith.
Ashley's departure marks the end of an era. But for William Sublette, it's the beginning of a new one. In July 1826, William Sublette and Jedediah Smith take over the fur trade business, pioneered by William Ashley.
March 1st, is it, General?
March 1st, Mr. Sublette. Not one day later, or I cannot guarantee delivery to the rendezvous.
But Ashley isn't fully letting go of the reins just yet.
Ashley is going to make sure that he continues to make money. He realizes that the money is made on the supplies that you sell, so he writes it into the contract. If you want goods for the next rendezvous, you buy them from me.
And as the supplier, he's depending on Sublette to get to him by March 1st in St. Louis in order to place their order for supplies for the upcoming Mountain Man rendezvous.
Robert Campbell quickly realizes the dangers of the new contract with Ashley.
Would that not mean heading east in winter, in January?
It does. It's not an easy trek.
I will do what needs to be done. You can expect me on the 1st.
Well, in that case, my friend, we have an agreement. I will need your name right here.
I think all of the men in the fur trade were all envious of Ashley, and many of them tried to follow in the same mold. You know, maybe I can be like William Ashley.
Sublette has seized a piece of the fur trade for himself, but holding on to it will be more difficult than he can imagine. Sublette and Smith waste little time launching their new enterprise, while Smith heads deep into the Southwest seeking new trapping regions. Sublette leads the rest of the brigade on the fall trapping expedition, an arduous, months-long trek to catch the valuable furs. But as fall turns to winter, Sublette faces an even greater challenge. If he misses his deadline in St. Louis, he won't have supplies to trade to the trappers at the next rendezvous, and his entire enterprise could collapse almost before it begins.
He just saw it as his responsibility. Things weren't going to happen if they didn't get any trade goods for the next summer.
To make sure his ambitious venture survives its first year, Sublette will need to undertake a harrowing journey, putting both his fortune and even his life on the line. To keep his new business alive, fur trader William Sublette must take an epic journey in the dead of winter, with veteran mountain man Moses Harris as his only companion.
In the new partnership, Sublette's role is that of the businessman. And so he's the one who has to make this lengthy trek in the winter in order to place an order for the rendezvous.
On New Year's Day, 1827, Sublette and Harris start their 1,000-mile march from the Rockies to St. Louis.
That's quite a blow coming in. You reckon we should hunker down?
Making a 1,000-plus mile trip in the winter from the Green River down to St. Louis on foot seems a little bit crazy.
Not if we want to make our deadline. With the great Moses Harris, rather warm his toes by the fire.
Oh.
But when a howling blizzard sets in, Sublette and Harris can only hunker down and hope their meager food will last.
They're enduring snow, gale force winds. They are hoping to hunt, but buffalo are not in the abundant supply that they were hoping for.
It's hard to find food in the wintertime. You're at the lowest number of animals on the landscape that is going to be there all year.
That was the last of our rations.
We'll find food, Harris. We've been on tougher marches than this.
Your body will begin to consume itself. You'll begin to digest muscles. You become weaker, disoriented.
Harris, look.
Now on the brink of starvation, the sudden appearance of a raven seems like a miracle.
You ever ate one of them ravens before?
Not yet. But we might soon.
The raven will provide much-needed sustenance to help Sublette and Harris survive until the blizzard breaks. But only if Sublette can overcome exhaustion and hunger to make a life-or-death shot.
I got him, Harris. I got it.
Starvation begins to set in. At one point, they're able to shoot a raven, and they're so hungry they don't even stop to cook it. They devour it right away.
Sublette writes later, he didn't know if it tasted good or bad, but it was something to sustain them as they make this trek.
Distasteful or not, this meager sustenance enables them to survive the deadly blizzard and make it to St. Louis. But in St. Louis, Sublette receives a harsh greeting from his partner, William Ashley.
You are late, Mr. Sublette. By 3 days.
Even worse, Sublette's learned that Ashley has been planning a rival trapping venture of his own.
Ashley can't be totally trusted on a personal level, even though he can get the supplies that Smith and Sublette need.
Now I find that you have set up your own expedition with the American Fur Company, no less.
If you had trekked 1,000 miles, endured unimaginable hardships, only to discover that your business partner had been organizing without you, you might be somewhat upset.
I did not fail. I was late. I can keep up my end of the bargain.
Well, my friend, I will continue to supply your expedition as contracted, and I will not accept any more exceptions.
Without a doubt, it was just another lesson in the school of William Ashley. Sometimes that means your friends might get hurt.
Disillusioned by his treatment by William Ashley, Sublette returns to the frontier. At the rendezvous, he rejoins his friend, Robert Campbell, who has become a healthy, seasoned leader over the last year, and consults his business partner, Jedediah Smith. Barely a year into his ambitious venture, Sublette's facing the harsh realities of the fur trade.
It seems a long day's walk for $1. With the general sitting at home, marking up the price of our supplies to whatever rate he likes.
You having second thoughts about our enterprise, William?
But William Sublette isn't going to give up easily.
Second thoughts? No. But I might have a better idea.
To get out from under Ashley's control, Sublette needs to make his business as profitable as he can. To do that, he will attempt a feat that's never been done before. And if he succeeds, he'll change the course of American history.
For the 1830 rendezvous, Sublette decides that he's going to bring wagons across the prairie and into the mountains for the first time. The wagons he saw as the key to the future. And if we can do this successfully, that it's going to change everything. Of course, it was a huge risk.
Hey, Gary, less than 10 miles to water. Get us there by sundown. I'll tap a keg of whiskey.
That sounds good, sir. We'll do it.
Up to now, the trappers' rendezvous has been supplied only by pack trains of mules and horses. Sublette is betting his fortune on wagons, which can each carry far more cargo than a pack mule.
But wagons have a number of disadvantages. A wagon train is large. It's not maneuverable. It requires significant modifications to the landscape, cutting wider paths, but it's a risk that Sublette is willing to take.
And if it failed, it would have spelt disaster for Sublette at that 1830 rendezvous. But they would reach points in the journey where there was a small ravine that these wagons just physically could not do. The animals couldn't pull it up too steep of an embankment.
Why are we stopped? We got money waiting, boys. Gary, get these men on this wagon, get it up the hill.
Yes, sir. You guys, come on. Push. Come on. Get them girls moving, donkey.
Driven to desperation by the harsh competition of the fur trade, Sublette's pushing his wagons and men to the breaking point.
Almost there. Come on. She's slipping.
But he may pay a terrible price for his ambitions.
Get it off him! Heed, boys!
While trying to bring a wagon train to the Rocky Mountains for the first time, fur trader William Sublette is putting both his fortune and the lives of his men at risk.
She's slipping! He's hurt!
Oh, he's pinned! We gotta move the wagon! Get it off him! Heave, boys! Hold it! I'm gonna get him!
Sublette's led this expedition hundreds of miles without losing a single man. But now, he pays the price for his ambition.
He's gone. The wagon train to the rendezvous does come at a cost. It's the cost of one man's life. This was often the cost of doing business. And it's a toll that begins to weigh on Sublette just as it had weighed on earlier men in his position and would weigh on men after.
We'll break camp at dawn.
The mountain men at the rendezvous eagerly await the arrival of Sublette's supplies, but they can't believe how he actually pulled it off.
When Sublette rolls into the rendezvous, the response is disbelief, followed immediately by jubilation. Men run out to greet the wagon train, excited and in some ways awed by what they've seen.
Hey, Gary. So you did it, Mr. Sublette. Wagons on the Wind River. A fine accomplishment indeed.
It's a remarkable spectacle, which is saying something for a mountain man rendezvous.
I reckon we could continue over South Pass if we were so inclined.
In the years to come, the trail blazed by Sublette becomes the highway of American expansion into the West.
Getting the wagons to the Rockies is an enormous achievement. This means there's wagon transportation that can go all the way to the West Coast.
Although Sublette doesn't know it, he's helped to blaze the Oregon Trail, and it's a sign of things to come, as there will be many more wagon trains carrying not only liquor and guns to mountain men, but families of Americans westward over the subsequent decades.
But whether or not Sublette realizes he's just made history, he has business at hand to attend to, as well as a long-awaited reunion.
Let's meet this evening.
You gonna stick me that little thing or what? Hey, perhaps we'll both stick you.
Yeah, Jed, put that thing aside. This here is my little brother Milton. Jed, meet Milton.
Yeah, I fail to see the resemblance here, fellas. William Sublette had several brothers, all of whom ended up in the Rocky Mountain West. His next youngest brother was Milton, and Milton ends up going to the Santa Fe area for trapping in the early 1820s, and then eventually works his way up into the Rockies.
But this isn't just a family reunion. Sublette and Smith are also meeting with their old comrades, Jim Bridger and Tom Fitzpatrick, to offer a business deal that will kick off a new era of the fur trade. Sublette knows that bringing wagons all the way to the Rocky Mountains will transform the fur trade, and also his personal destiny.
They had a great fur season. The partners could pay off what they still owed Ashley and still have some profit for themselves.
Thanks for joining us.
So, wildest subterfuge, brother. We have a proposition for you, friends.
We plan to sell the company.
At the 1830 rendezvous, Smith and Sublette decide they're ready to end their partnership. And they identify a group of lieutenants under them who are ready to take their place and have their own go at it.
There ain't no one I trust with it more than you.
Hold on now. You don't mean to say you're leaving the mountains?
Not precisely. I propose that I supply you as General Ashley did for me. Keep a hand in, and you'll have a trustworthy partner.
Sublette felt they could start to play a part of the same type of role that William Ashley had in terms of supplying them.
But Sublette's friends wonder if his offer will come with strings attached.
Sublette could now control the price of the furs that come down to St. Louis. Sublette learned from Ashley the tricks of doing business in a way that is best for your company and best for your interests.
I know General Ashley undercut you in your first year, Bill. He'll be playing his role with us, so you fellas do us right.
We all know Astor's American Fur Company seeks to control this entire trade, and the Hudson Bay Company's pushing us out of the Columbia. Would any of you rather work for them?
Jed, you're sure about this?
I mean, all this is gonna change whether we wish it to or not. This is how you keep your fortune in your hands.
Friends, Jed is right. I'll come to you with this first. I'll need to know if you have interest.
All right, Bill. We trust you.
By passing the torch to Fitzpatrick, Bridger, and his brother Milton, William Sublette has come full circle and created a business dynasty that would last throughout the golden age of the fur trade. But on America's wild frontier, the trappers don't always get the final word. Now under new management, the Rocky Mountain Fur Company sees its best season ever at the 1832 Trappers' Rendezvous. And Sublette sells out his stock of supplies with Robert Campbell as his right-hand man. But soon after it ends, Milton Sublette stumbles into what becomes the biggest battle of the frontier era. Just a few miles from the rendezvous, Milt's brigade encounters a large party of Gros Ventre warriors.
You tell who they are? It's Blackfeet, a war party.
But in a tragic misunderstanding, trapper Antoine Godin thinks the approaching warriors are actually Blackfeet and bitter enemies.
Antoine's father had been killed by the Blackfeet just a year or two before this.
Maybe they don't want to fight.
Blackfeet always want to fight. They'll call you brother, and they'll draw the knife without warning.
Antoine, where are you going?
Parlay with this chief.
After the Gros Ventre chief rides ahead of his party, a trapper named Antoine Godin, along with a companion, a Flathead Indian, ride out to meet the chief.
Look sharp, boys. And the Flatheads, just literally a month or so before Rendezvous, had had a run-in with Blackfeet. They're not happy about it at all.
The Gros Ventre chief held up a peace pipe, very similar to this one probably. And so by this Gros Ventre chief holding up a pipe like this represented he wanted to talk peace.
But peace is the furthest thing from Antoine Godin's mind.
Shoot! Men, fall back!
And with one impulsive act of violence, the biggest battle of the frontier era is suddenly underway.
Shoot! Men, fall back!
After a pair of vengeful trappers shoot down a Gros Ventre chief in cold blood, William Sublette's brother, Milton, finds himself fighting the biggest battle of the frontier era.
You see that, Sublette?
and Milt Sublette knows that without help from his brother, he and his men will soon be overrun.
You imbecile, there was no reason for this fight. You go tell my brother what you started. Get! Yeah!
Outnumbered by the furious Grovant, Milt Sublette's only hope is that his brother arrives soon with reinforcements. But back at the rendezvous, miles away, Sublette has no idea his brother is in any danger at all.
Sublette! Where's Sublette? Here? Milton! He's in trouble. He's surrounded by Blackfeet. Need your help. Let's go, boys! Woo! All right, boys. Grab your gear, let's go.
Sublette is a leader among men. He has nearly a decade of experience in the wilderness. It makes sense for him to be the one to take charge and protect his companions.
Milt's brigade is in trouble. We're gonna help him. Who's ready for a fight? Yeah! Let's go.
Sublette's led men in business ventures and on trapping expeditions. But to save his brother's life, he now must lead them into battle. Sublette's friends Jim Bridger and Robert Campbell have also joined the fight, which has turned into a tense standoff.
The Grovant have hunkered down and prepared for a long battle by constructing a makeshift fort.
If they could have found a better defense, I'm sure they would have taken it, but this was desperation.
Well, Milt, what have you got yourself into this time? Antoine started this. I'm gonna have his head. Just try not to lose ours for now. They're folded up in there with logs, buffalo robes. The longer we let them barricade themselves, the harder they'll be to pry out.
William Sublette was the natural leader of this group, so he's the one that people look to and the voice that they followed.
Over in that thicket are the Blackfeet that have killed so many of our friends. I say we drive them out of these woods and teach them a lesson they won't soon forget. Yeah!
Sublette said that if we are going to do business in these mountains, we have to show these Indians that we are here to stay. And the only way we're going to prove that to them is if we go nose to nose with them.
Lovely speech, William. This is foolhardy. We know they'll skedaddle once they lose a few of their braves.
Robert, I'll not lose any more of my men. We need to end this fight today and now. Robert, if I fall, I want you to be the sole executor of my will.
So be it. And you'll be mine, me friend.
All right, boys! Let's go!
Sublette leads his men into the woods, not quite sure how many warriors lie ahead, or when they'll strike.
This barricade is not very high, but they've lined the edges of it with some of their teepee covers so you can't see in.
Sublette can't see the Grovant waiting in ambush, but they have no trouble seeing him.
Get him back to the camp! Hurry!
A free trapper from Arkansas is the first casualty of the assault, but Sublette isn't turning back now.
Sublette determines to drive the Grovant from the fortification. He actually spies a Grovant through a small hole in the breastworks of this fort. But as he's firing, he himself is shot.
Sublette's hit!
A Grovant bullet has shattered his arm. And as Campbell risks his life to help him, Sublette knows he's losing this battle, and maybe his life. In a fierce clash with Grovant warriors, frontiersman William Sublette has been wounded by an enemy bullet.
All right.
Sublette takes a shot through the arm. It breaks his arm and exits up through his collarbone. He's losing so much blood that he's not being effective.
But still,
Campbell takes it as his responsibility to get the injured Sublette to safety.
Being out on the landscape forms deep friendships. You're friends because you rely on each other, right? You're making a pact. I'll help keep you alive. You help keep me alive.
But even though Sublette is down, the battle continues. The Gros-Ventres aren't giving up until they avenge their chief's death.
Once a battle gets heated, some kind of a frenzy that develops among the tribes where they have to fight.
With their captain knocked out of the battle, the trappers' attack falters, leaving both sides in a stalemate. Word of Sublette's injury spreads quickly, leaving his men wondering what to do next.
Oh, heck, Bill. You tell me this ain't mortal. I'll never fear, brother. It's just a scratch. Get me back to the fight.
Stop playing the bloody hero, William. I hear one of them greenhorns is a doctor. I can go get him.
Let's save it, Bridger. How goes the fight? Don't know. Can't see much past that barricade. There's plenty shooting, but we're likely to hate each other as much as any Blackfeet.
Sublette faces the ultimate test of leadership. Press the attack and see more friends die. Or withdraw and fight another day.
Jim, you think we could burn them out?
I reckon we can try. I'll get some men, start some fires.
I'm with you, Bridger. Like heck you are, Antoine. You've done enough. You find that doctor. Get! Jim, let's go.
The idea was that if we start the place on fire, they'll either die in the fire or they'll try to get away.
Waiting for a lull in the shooting, Bridger slips into the woods to start the fire. But as he does, the Gros-Ventres try to turn the odds in their favor.
As they're making preparations to light this inferno, they hear the Gros-Ventres calling out across the battlefield, saying that they have many lodges that are coming in support of them.
Did you catch any of that?
Not a word.
All right, keep going. I'll be back.
In the second grave mistake of the day, Bridger misunderstands what the Gros-Ventres are saying.
Bill, we got a new problem.
What is it now?
Blackfeet. I heard them say hundreds more on their way. Seems like they're headed to the rendezvous.
Sublette instantly recognizes the mortal danger the rest of his men now face.
Who's still there?
Clerks, teamsters mostly. I brought all the fighting men up here.
Bill, we could lose everything. A catch for the entire year, all our trade goods.
That doesn't matter now. You gotta keep everyone in camp from getting massacred.
They're in no shape to ride. It'll kill you.
Get back to the rendezvous now.
All right. Boys, cover me!
Sublette's worst fears are being realized. The rendezvous is under threat of attack, and all he can do is hope that Jim Bridger warns them in time. Gravely wounded in battle, William Sublette sends Jim Bridger to warn the rendezvous about an approaching host of Gros-Ventres warriors. At the main camp, Bridger rallies the remaining able-bodied men.
Get around, on me!
And prepares for the attack that Bridger believes could come at any minute.
Come on!
By the next morning, Sublette and Bridger realized the Gros Ventre had no intention of attacking the rendezvous at all.
How many did?
40 of them. 4 of ours.
This is the true cost of doing this business.
I sent scouts out. No sign of them. Skedaddled in the night, got clean away.
Bridger misinterpreted what the Gros Ventre said, thinking that another party is attacking the rendezvous. When Bridger gets there, they find there aren't any Gros Ventre to be found.
The battle kind of fizzled out because the entire group of Indians were able to escape in the night. They left behind dead animals, a few of their dead members of their tribe before escaping, and that was the Battle of Pierre's Hole.
Now they're gone. Except for the dead.
The Battle of Pierre's Hole really represented a shift in Sublette's life and his career.
These men need proper burial. Jim, can you handle that?
We'll see to it.
Being shot made him realize his own mortality and the danger of the everyday aspect of the fur trade. I think he was ready to approach it at a different angle, and he saw Robert Campbell as the perfect partner to do that. And this partnership would really set both Sublette and Robert Campbell up in their careers for the rest of their lives.
Thank you for saving my life, Bob.
Well, you saved mine first. It only seemed fair.
I'm thinking it might just be time that we both start thinking about a new line of work.
In the years to come, William Sublette will leave the frontier behind, but he'll do so having transformed the fur trade forever and changed the course of American history.
Sublette's legacy is his dual role as mountain man and businessman.
He had an instrumental role in figuring out the lay of the land and understanding the land.
He developed a trail over the Continental Divide that became the immigrant trails of the 1840s and 50s. He ought to be the father of the Oregon Trail.
He was able to transcend both sides of the business and be successful in each of these worlds.